Hello, everybody. I'm Madame Sensei. I teach Spanish, French, Japanese. I have a section of English language arts, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is WANIC Summer Health. So you might be saying, oh, you're jack of all trades, master of none. Well, perhaps, but I think I'm really good at health because 24 years ago, this is an old picture, 24 years ago, I was totally paralyzed head to toe. And I had to learn to walk again. I had to learn to feed myself again. I had to learn to comb my hair again. This is me in a wheelchair with the transfer belt, and my physical therapist helping me learn to move my arms again, and my daughter helping me learn to move my arms again. I think I know how the human body works. So when WANIC first approached me for what I teach summer health, heck yes, I think I'm really good at this. So summer health is a whirlwind. It is kind of crazy. Our normal school year ends around here, around the 19th, 20th, 21st, depending, how the week falls. And then I maybe have 2 days to prepare for WANIC if I'm lucky. And so we have this week right here, which goes into the first week of July, and then this week, and then it's over. Okay? So each day is the equivalent of 1 week of semester classes. So it works out to be 90 hours. I almost said 180 hours. That's a full year. And it works out to be 90 hours for 3 solid weeks. And this is just what I wrote on the board. And you can see my handwriting's still not very good because my fingertips are still numb, even after 24 years. But there is like no downtime, okay? Class starts at 8, so I had better be there at 7:30 at the very latest, because I got a lot of games to set up and everything, so normally I'm there at 7. And then class ends at 3, and that's solid. I eat lunch with the kids. Breaks are not much of a break. I'm lucky if I can run to the restroom, because often I've got students in the room who just want to hang out and talk or whatever. Yeah, there's no prep period. It's just solid time with the students. So time was when I first started this. I'm trying to remember if it was 9 or 10 years ago. I would drive down to a really big school in a big city. I live in kind of a small city. In the really big school in the big city, I was one of 6 health teachers. And the idea was that Bob is taking health for whatever reason. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that students take health over the summer. Maybe they need to make up the credit. Maybe they're in orchestra and they don't have time to take health. So they take it over the summer to get it out of the way, so they have more time for orchestra or whatever fun stuff they've got. Another art class, whatever. Sometimes we have a STEM school nearby. I don't understand how a STEM school does not offer health, which is the state of Washington mandates that you have to have health. But okay, so they take health during summer school. So classes are pretty packed. And the idea is, what if Bob takes health and he winds up he winds up in Mr. Ratburn's class. And his best friend Fred winds up in the class across the hall with the woman who plays guitar and sings about colors all the time. Bob and Fred are best friends. They're going to be eating lunch together, and they're going to be comparing what they learned, and oh no, they can't have 2 different experiences. So everyone has to do the exact same thing. And I remember, I think it was maybe the first year I was doing this, one of my colleagues, whom I loved, wonderful person, well, she said, I've got a great idea. Let's show Shrek during the mental health section, and we can have the students talk about the mental health of the characters. And everybody else thought this was a great idea, and I'm like, why Shrek? I think there's other movies we could do. No, they were set on Shrek. Okay, well, I don't have a copy of Shrek, and I can't get down to the public library to get one because class starts tomorrow. And they won't be in time because it's a very popular movie. And they're like, oh, we'll just use Amazon Prime. I don't have Amazon Prime. Well, you better get Amazon Prime. So I was a little like, how? And also, I don't like teaching from the textbook. I'm kind of crazy. Maybe if you've watched my other playlists, you know I'm kind of crazy. So after a few years of that, I decided, you know what? I'm not going nowhere. So this is my portable, and when I first started teaching at this school 15 years ago, there were like 3 months where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm out in a portable. Nobody remembers I'm here. And then after 3 months, I was like, I'm out in a portable. Nobody remembers I'm here. So if I wanted to take my Japanese students and say, hey, you need to work on your kanji, here's a bucket of chalk. Let's go out here to the parking lot. Let's write all the kanji you know on the parking lot. Okay, if I want to take my French students and say, hey, guys, we're going to go practice fencing, marche, retraite. Okay, we could do it here with pool noodles. My Spanish students, they were driving me crazy one time, just last year, and I'm like, okay, guys, el cielo es azul, ¿cuántos años tienes tú? They had to learn that. Okay, here's a bag of jump ropes. We're going outside. You guys are going to count. And when you mess up, that's how old you are. Okay, so like, it's so nice to be out here where I could do whatever the heck I want. So, WANIC really wants me with everybody else, but I really like being out here where I can do my own thing and I don't have to march lockstep with everyone else. So we do work out of a textbook, and this is the scope and sequence of the textbook that we agreed on 100 million years ago when I first started this. Each day is a week of like semester long health class. Okay, so I follow this scope and sequence, but I do not actually work out of the textbook. I say, okay, unit 1 is mental health, and I'm going to be talking about the textbook in a later episode of this. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in what I do with the textbook. Okay, but we do mental health. Okay, so the first day is introduction, blah, 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 blah. No, I have more things I need to do there. Mental health, which takes 2 days. Social health, which is I usually do 3 days because I really want to talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Okay, not really. Well, we do talk about rock and roll. I will make an episode about that, okay? Nutrition, 2 days. Physical fitness. Now, physical fitness, I actually work into every single day, and I will talk about that because it's a health class. I want to teach you how to be healthy. Substance abuse is here. Yeah, but I do kind of put them together. Substance abuse is more than 1 day. It is a huge thing. Preventing disease, community health and safety, and then our last day, which is the final exam and everything. So let's look again at my crazy whirlwind of a schedule. Just in case you want ideas for your own health class, or you're also teaching summer health and you're like, how do I pack it all in 1 day without going crazy? My handwriting is really bad, so let me move that over, and I've made it all pretty now. So at 8 o'clock, I start the students with some journals that we are working on, and I'm going to do a whole episode about that because this ties into my final exam. And frankly, I think this is the most brilliant thing that I do for my summer health class. So they have to start with their journals, and I'll talk about that in an episode coming up. And then we have a discussion question of the day, which ties into whatever it is that we're talking about. Then we have a little bit of mindfulness. I think the kids today are really stressed. They have a lot of social anxiety. So back when I first started teaching health, we had to do this, and I was like, okay, fine. I've lived in Japan. I understand mindfulness and everything. And now as the years go by, every year I think this is more and more and more important, and I'm so glad I do this. Then I need to teach them the vocabulary that they need for the unit of the day. Now, I'm an expert on vocabulary, teaching Spanish, French, and Japanese, and it's different when you're doing it like, hey, this is 1 day we're doing the vocabulary, and then we're never going to look at it again. So I'm very, very intentional about my vocabulary games, and I'm very game-based, so it has to be a game. It can't just be like, here are the definitions. Then I've got my mini lessons, and then we have a break. And then 10 o'clock is either more mini lessons or an extra project that I sneak in. That's why I wrote stuff. And then exercise. Exercise is crucial. This is a health class. Okay, I know you're like, oh, it's not a PE class. It's a health class, and exercise is so important to health. I'm telling you, as someone who has difficulty walking, exercise is hugely important. Okay, then we have lunch, and lunch is only half an hour. And then they come back in and they have to journal some more because they got to journal about what they ate for lunch, which I'll explain. And then another vocab game. And then more mini lessons. another break, and then our big project of the day. And I'm going to have episodes on each of my projects because I really do enjoy projects. I enjoy project-based learning. I've had kids come in, look at the board and say, oh my gosh, we have a project every day. And I don't know what they're thinking. They're thinking it's like typical 5-paragraph essays. No, that's not what a project is. An essay is an essay, okay? And we got a vocab quiz to end the day, just that they know all the vocabulary, and I will have a whole episode about that. And then at 3 o'clock, that's the end of the day. Goodbye, kids. And then I start setting up for the next day because I have projects every day and it's a big setup. And then I come in early to make sure everything's set up. So in these episodes, next one I'm going to do is just ideas for vocab games. I think that's a good place to start. And then I'm going to go into all my projects because I really like the projects that, and I'm always adding new projects. So a lot of this is going to be thinking. I mean, the reason I'm over 10 minutes again, the reason I'm making these videos is so I can think aloud, right? Nobody's watching these. I know that. But I've got, I really want to make an AI psychosis lecture project. The whole lesson, I need to squeeze that in. That's important. Okay. I'm going to talk about some ideas for exercise. I'm going to talk about mindfulness, which I have talked about on previous one of my other channels, but I'm going to talk about it again. And I'm going to talk about my final exam. And then there's a couple of other things that I'm going to throw in there. How I use the textbook so that I can say I'm using the textbook even though I'm not quite using the textbook. My ideas for projects that I haven't quite solidified yet. Other stuff like that. So hope to see you there.